The removal of the screen is the removal of the visual stimulus. When you take away the picture of something, you put the creative responsibility upon the listener, and you require their own imagination to decide what they're hearing. If you listen to Harry Potter, you have an idea of what he looks like, the school that he goes to, the train that he rides. When you watch the movie, it's just kind of given to you. So it's a more passive experience. It's still entertaining. But the reason why listening to reading is the first step towards literacy is because...
Hello, and welcome to another amazing episode of TMC, where we are here to help you take your relationship
from surviving to thriving. And if this is your first time joining us, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button, hit the notification bell so you won't miss any amazing episodes. And also, we have something special giveaway at the end of this podcast.
So we encourage you to listen all the way to the end of the video so you can be entered for this great giveaway. Today on TMC, we have Vernon with Creative Parenting.
Hi, my name is Drew. I'm married. I have 3 kids ranging in age from 12 to 6. And I'm currently working for a company called Tonies, which is a screen-free audio system for kids. We could talk more about that, but I'm a marketer and an entrepreneur. Prior to working for Tonies, I managed the preschool business for Lego. That's how I kind of got my start in the toy industry.
Wow.
And my interest in childhood and childhood development. And I just wanted to say thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for joining us, Drew. So you have how many kids?
I have 3. I have 2 girls, 12 and 6, and I have a boy in the middle. He's 9.
Awesome. So you mentioned that you worked for Tony's. Tell us a little bit about that and what they do.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll start with the beauty, and then I'll kind of get into what brought me into toys. So I've always been interested in business. I went to business school for brand and product management. And I have also always been interested in human psychology and the reasons why people do the things that they do, and in like a marketing context, why they buy certain things. And so I got into the beauty industry and I learned a lot about marketing, selling a lot of lotion, a lot of mascara. I wanted to do something a little bit more fun. I had been a lifelong fan of Lego. I got my first Lego set, when I was 5 or 6 years old, and I thought it'd be really fun to go work for Lego. And it's just a blast. Nobody takes themselves too seriously when you're playing. Along the way, I've really appreciated the value of play, and I've become a huge proponent for helping to increase and improve play experiences for kids.
Amazing.
So Drew, you talked a little bit about the play experience for kids and the development process. You talked about studying that and how you were interested in that. So what are the benefits of their play experience?
Yeah, so I really got into this when I was working at Lego. At the time, I was thinking about different ways to increase play between parents and children. And so I ended up creating a program called Prescription for Play, in which I partnered with pediatricians across the country. They would give out a little prescription card when parents would come in with an 18-month or a 24-month-old toddler, and they would recommend that they play with them for 15 minutes a day. And I observed the success of the program, and I realized that just by encouraging play and getting parents to take time out of their busy schedule, it was really helping the children connect to the parent emotionally and socially, but also just giving them an opportunity to increase the normal developmental skills that children at those young ages are trying to learn, including cognitive skills, social and emotional skills, and fine motor skills.
I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about what you're saying about connection and the time of this recording. We're living in 2022 and there's technology and there's cell phones and social media and all these different things that I believe, they can kind of separate, the family experience. And what you're doing is, I think, is really awesome to connect the child with the family. As far as some of the research that you have done, why is this important for a parent that's listening right now to get involved and to do something, that physical interaction, with toys and things like that?
I believe that we only get one childhood, and our children only get one childhood, and so it's really just depends on how we use those moments. That
Yeah.
I see my kids are growing up faster than I would like,
Mm,
and I just know that I will never get that time back with them, and so that's one of the reasons why I am such a big advocate for play, and especially parent-child play and screen-free play. So now I'm working at Tonies, which is a screen-free audio speaker for kids that
mm.
gets some of those devices out of the children's hands, or at least reduces screen time by giving them another option or opportunity to explore the world of entertainment and education in a screen-free way.
Love it.
I have a question, Drew. So, talking about the children, but you work obviously with adults, so at your job, so or in your business. So, how do you see the same thing, like the play, the benefits of the play? How does that work in regards to adults? Because as you're talking, I'm thinking about the parent who may not can see that they can set aside this time to sit down and play with the
Mm,
kids, and just trying to help them understand how it could benefit them as well.
mm.
Yeah, I like that question because I feel like the older that we get, the more serious life is, and you go from school, and then you get into it. Most people are in full-time work or working, and you kind of lose that sense of
Mm.
childhood. And childhood, I believe, is a time that's filled with wonder and possibility,
All right.
and you have less time to do that as an adult, and you have more bills to pay, you got mortgages, and so I think that play is not just a luxury but a human need,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and to recognize that as an adult, I think allows you to keep that sense of wonder. And that's going to be something that's going to keep you happier. And it's also going to sharpen your sense of creativity and imagination, which should help you in your professional life, depending on what you do, but also just your general well-being, I believe, as well.
Wow. As a family, as a unit, I think this is really, really great. Because I remember growing up when I grew up in the 80s, I remember playing things like, cards and Uno and
Hide and seek.
Connect Four and all these different things, hide and seek. Yeah, all these great games that, I mean, obviously, there's moments and there's memories coming back to my mind right now as we speak, as I think about all these happy memories. And I'm just thinking about right now, even me thinking about and the thought of it, it's bringing this sense of joy back. It's this way I felt when I was a kid. It's like it's
Absolutely.
drawing it right back in this moment. What's your experience, parents and children? This interaction will make that lasting impressions and memories.
Yeah, I think there's a lot behind that question. I am not like an academic. I work for a toy company, and I call myself street smart. I guess a little bit more than book smart when it comes to childhood and play,
Right.
because I just observe what works, and I observe what makes kids happy, and what makes parents happy. And I think that comes from allowing yourself to be a little bit silly, and allowing yourself to pretend, and allowing yourself to get lost in story. And these are kind of the hallmark elements of play, improvisation. And these are the things that the more that we cultivate, the happier that we'll be. And
Wow.
one of the reasons why I'm so um, enthusiastic about it is because I see so many things going on in the world today. Like, tell me that we don't live in a crazy time right now. Like, I feel
Right.
like the
Exactly.
news every day
Absolutely.
is a news story, right? And that's not to mention like the last 2 years of what we're coming through with COVID, where we all have been disrupted in our work. Our kids have all been disrupted in school. A lot of their education at school has changed to screen-based learning, and so now kids are looking at screens on average over 7 hours a day. And these are the things that I feel like take us away from connection and take us away from attention. And
Yeah.
those are the things that play is intended to keep vibrant, I believe.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Right. And you mentioned earlier, you talked about imagination and creativity. And as Cedric was talking, I was thinking the same thing when you said that. It was like, as we grow older, we more our mindset may be more focused on task and getting things accomplished, and we kind of lose. And I'm like, yeah, creativity and your imaginations. Kids can turn a bucket into a castle. They turn it into they turn a remote in TV remote into a car, and you know, they just have all of these ideas and this imagination. And as you talked, I thought about where does that go when we're adults, and that's why I asked the question, like, how can it benefit us as adults? And that's what I believe it will do, to take that time out to sit on the floor and play with your kids, and to it's a connection for the family, for your child to have that lasting memory of playing with their parent on the floor. But at the same time, it is keeping that child alive inside of us, so that that creativity, when you're working on that project at work, or when you're trying to do that DIY project in the backyard, or whatever it is, it keeps that creativity flowing. And I think that we don't think about that, because I know I did. It's like, I don't think that playing with the kids is going to bring that. But when you said that, that's what really came to mind for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Drew, you tell us you have 3 kids and you work, you know, for a toy company. So tell us, what does play and hanging out looks like with you and your kids?
Right.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, maybe I'll just explain a little bit about the company I work for now, and how my kids kind of interact with it. So I work for a company called Tonies. We make this little speaker box called the Tony box, and it was designed by a couple of dads who wanted to make storytelling easier for kids, young children, to access. So they actually met on the board of a preschool together, and they saw that their children's teacher was using CD players in the classroom to play different songs and stories. And they thought to themselves, you know, CDs are great, but they're kind of old, they scratch and they break, and kids at young ages can't really operate them without adult supervision. So they created these little figures called Tonies. They go on the box, and they're magnetic, so they'll stay on here. And then you just pinch the little ear. And I've got the Very Hungry Caterpillar here. That's a classic. We also have, you know, everything from Disney characters to storybook characters: Peppa Pig, Paw Patrol, Pete the Cat, Dr. Seuss,
Oh,
Llama
wow.
Oh,
Llama.
wow.
My favorite is actually, I was a big fan of LeVar Burton growing up from Reading Rainbow. And when
Yes.
I came to the company, I actually found his agent and cold called him and asked him if he would be interested in partnering with us.
Wow.
So we ended up getting LeVar Burton to create his own Tony figure, where he reads his audiobook. But yeah, that's just kind of the playful experience, so the young kids can have instant access to songs and stories. And then getting back to your question, how my kids interact with it, there's actually characters that we sell called creative Tonys that don't have preloaded content. They're just blank. And so you can actually put your own content onto a creative Tony, and you can just record it from your phone. And that allows
Oh,
kids to
wow.
write their own
Yeah.
songs, their own stories, tell jokes, write poems. And so that's how my kids tend to express their creativity, is through writing and recording their own songs and stories. So each one of these Tony figures has a microchip inside of it. So when you put it on the box, it actually uses Wi-Fi to download it onto the box. Yeah, they work just like CDs. And so, you know, if you have a different figure, then it's going to be a different story. Sell these figures, they're about $15 each. You know, you can get them at Target, Best Buy, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or at tonys.com. And you get the Very Hungry Caterpillar, and then that gives you that story. You can buy Paw Patrol, you know, Peppa Pig, and really just build your collection of audio content. We also do nonfiction content as well, with National Geographic. And so it's really just designed to grow
Oh, my
into
goodness.
Amazing.
an on-demand library for kids.
That is so cool.
Yes.
That is so cool. You mentioned something a few minutes ago, and I was like, I never even thought about that. How many hours the kids are now spending on devices because,
Mhm.
you know, of the shift in the last few years. And sometimes the kids are just walking around and they're looking at the screen. They're not even looking up, they're just looking at the phone or
Yeah.
looking at the iPad. So, what are some of the developmental benefits for them having the Tonys?
So all of the navigation with the Tony box is all tactile because there is no screen. You know, usually if you're trying to find the next song or the next track, you know, you might have like a little display or something to look at. We've not done that because we want everything to be through touch. And so if you're trying to
Mm.
get to the next story, you just give the little box a little tap, or you can tilt it to fast forward it. And so it teaches tactile play in addition to screen-free listening. And one of the reasons why I really appreciate the fact that there's no screen is that everybody knows what happens when kids stare at a screen too long. They turn into zombies. I call it zombie mode.
Yeah.
Um, and you try to take a kid off of a screen, a lot of times they'll have a tantrum or it just doesn't end well. That's the first reason why I think screens can be problematic if used too often. But one thing that I didn't realize until I came to Tony's is that there's another benefit as well, which is that the removal of the screen is the removal of the visual stimulus. When you take away the picture of something, you put the
Mm.
creative responsibility upon the listener,
Wow.
and you require their own imagination to decide what they're hearing. If you listen to Harry Potter, you have an idea of what he looks like, the school that he goes to, the train that he rides. When you watch the movie, it's just kind of given to you. So it's a more passive experience. It's still entertaining. But the reason why listening to reading is the first step towards literacy is because it gets young kids, I'm talking about 2, 3, 4 years old, it introduces them to vocabulary, and it introduces them to following along to a story and imagining that in their mind. And the more practice they get through screen-free methods, the more developmentally advanced they'll be at the younger ages.
That
That's
is
amazing.
awesome, and that is amazing in a world where we're bombarded by what's on the screen.
Yeah. I mean, I just realized how much the creativity is diminishing
Being sucked away.
because, with things with modern day technology and the tools that we're using, you no longer have to be creative. I mean, even a lot of the video games or whatever that is on the market right now, all you're doing, I mean, you're being entertained and you're playing the video games, but the creativity has already been structured and made and designed, and you don't have to be creative at all. And I think that sets, our children at a disadvantage, not having that creativity growing up as a child.
Absolutely, because as Drew was talking about it, and he talked about, how it could benefit you as far as in your work, the idea of how the creativity, thinking about a project that you could be doing at work, and sometimes I guess that lack of using that part of our brain and having it to mature and grow because we're actively using it. If you use it more as far as the creativity, it's like it unlocks it. So you have ideas.
Yeah.
And as you talked about the fact of, listening to a story, I oftentimes thought about if my husband is talking to me and he's talking about a person that I've never met. In my mind, I've already created what they look like, how tall they are,
Yeah.
how short they are, what they, their hair, all of that. You have these ideas. And I know in the past I've told my husband, they don't look like I thought they looked. Because in my mind, in my imagination, in my creativeness, I've already created a narrative for what they look like. And as you said that, it connected that. And it just made so much sense because we're talking about play and we're talking about children, but I think that it's important for adults to understand how that works for us as well, because it's the same thing. Our brains, there's something that continues to grow. The parts that we use, it gets stronger, it increases, and it's beneficial to us, not just as kids. Because I think sometimes as adults we can think that they're like, oh, that's good for the kids, but different for me. And so if we can see how it benefits us, and as you talked about your kids, and I thought about the families and all of that, I thought about the benefits that are even beyond what we can think about imagination, the connection for parents taking out time to sit down with their kids. You're creating memories that will be there forever. You're affecting them in ways that will go beyond what we could even measure, because they will have these great memories of these times spent with their parents and their family instead of being on the screen.
Yeah, that's really well put. I love everything you said about that. I just think it's so important, and it's great to remember as adults because it's easy to get caught up in, life.
You as a parent and working with toys versus someone else, the difference between how you parent and maybe someone else parent based on
Yeah. I think it's made me hyper aware of how
mm,
I parent my children because I've been at Tony's for a little over 2 years now,
mm,
and I started basically the same month as the COVID lockdown,
wow,
and
wow,
here I am spending, 7 or 8 hours a day at my job telling people how great screen-free, entertainment is, or the importance of screen-free.
mm,
I can only do that so long in the middle of a pandemic when, I'm taking calls from home on Zoom like everybody else. I'm telling everybody about this screen-free device, and I've got 3 kids in the other room that are staring at Netflix and they're
uh,
staring at an iPhone.
uh,
And so it makes you hyper aware. And, they're a little bit older than, most of our content. Most of our content on the Tony box is geared towards preschool ages. And so they will use the Tony box for the creative Tonys. But to answer your question, I think you can't work on something as a profession without having it kind of creep into your personal life. And so
uh,
because I work in the toy industry and because I make things for kids and experiences for kids, it makes me want to be a better father and to create better experiences for my own kids. And yeah, I don't mean to sound like the perfect dad or to like even say that like I'm better than other dads because I get it, but like part of it is just like recognizing my own hypocrisy and my own screen addiction. How many of us
Right, right,
adults
right.
are
wow,
And
scrolling Instagram too much or
wow,
checking email too
uh,
much? And so I still struggle with that, but I am at least keenly aware of the dichotomy of my own screen time and the way that I parent my children.
And as you talk, Drew, that's actually what I thought about because it's like we can have the focus of to be the conversation to be focusing on the kids and
mm,
them limiting their screen time and giving them something else to do. But definitely as adults, we live in a world where we are now bombarded by the screen, whether it's Netflix,
Hmm.
whether it's Instagram,
yeah,
Facebook, everything is the screen. I mean,
yeah,
we literally even look for jobs on the screen.
absolutely,
LinkedIn,
absolutely,
everything is
yeah,
on the screen.
yeah,
And so as you talk, that's one of the things that also popped into the back of my mind. Like, how much time do we actually spend doing things?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of great things about technology and screens. I don't mean to come and say that they don't have their use.
Absolutely.
We can communicate from, different parts in the world, and that's a beautiful thing. But it's all about balance, especially for kids. And kids don't need to be on screens all of the time because a screen takes you somewhere else. And, if we're trying to be grounded and present, or at least have times of feeling present, we need to be removed of those distractions, I think. And
yeah.
that's the environment that creativity is bred, I think.
Absolutely. Drew, you said grounded and present. And as you said that, I just thought about as a parent, the parents that are listening, like that's grounded and present.
Mm,
That's definitely two things we want to be in our children's lives, in their development process, in
yeah,
their childhood, and just in life, period. Even as a couple, husband and wife, we want to be grounded and present. We want
Mhm.
to have that time where we're pulling away from things. And talking to you is actually, like you said, it's exposing or making me be hyper
yeah, it's
aware of,
awareness, yeah,
of what I do and how I do it. Like,
yeah,
instead of, we're definitely quickly, and nothing wrong with TV movies. We like that, spending time together as well. The projects, like, okay, we could be doing that. Just
yeah,
something to just for that connection, that being grounded and present. That's a nugget right there.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So, Drew, you have a podcast with your daughter. Tell us about the podcast with your daughter.
Wow.
I do, yeah. My youngest is 6 now. When she was 4, she was in preschool, and her school shut down with COVID, as did everybody's. And I was working from home, and I really just kind of grabbed onto the opportunity to. I was spending my mornings with her. I was living in in Connecticut on the East Coast with most of my team on the West Coast. So I had some time in the morning to kill. My daughter was home from school, and so we created a podcast together. It's called Childhood, and we talk about our childhoods. I had one that I like to tell my daughter about, and she's currently experiencing one. And so she shares with me. And what I've loved is that, we haven't really done this with the intent of, getting a huge following or listenership or anything like that. I really don't even track how many people are listening, but it's really about spending the time with her and having a record to go back to. So now, we've done 55 or 60 episodes over 2 years. She's really improved because we talk about storytelling, and we talk about, role play, and we talk about improvisation, and we talk about, all of these things. And now she's just this little performer that even at a young age, she has the confidence and she has the creativity. I love that time that we've spent together.
That is amazing. Wow.
I love it. I love it. And as you continue to talk, all I kept thinking was grounded and present, grounded and present. That's awesome. That's awesome. Allowing you to create that memory on record for you and your daughter. Amazing.
Let me ask you this. So what have that done for your relationship as a parent and daughter?
It's kind of fascinating, actually, because, working for toy companies, I feel like I try to get back into my inner child and almost I don't know if nostalgia is the right word, but just, I remember with fondness my childhood. And I think spending time with my daughter and specifically speaking about childhood, it's given me a different lens of seeing the world through her eyes.
Wow.
And it brings back that magic for me. And I enjoy her more, and I enjoy her innocence and everything that she's experiencing, she's doing as a child, for the first time. And that's just such a wonderful and amazing time of life that if I can't do that again, if I can't go back in time and be a kid again, the next best thing is to live another childhood through my daughter's eyes.
That is amazing. Awesome. And that is so huge. And I think those are some things that we may take for granted as parents, those moments, and really having that moment, that opportunity to experience, that kid-like behavior. I think that's so great.
It is. And that's building lasting memories that will last forever. And you said something that I thought was very cute. It's if I can't go back to childhood, then I can live connected to hers. And I think that's great. That's great. I'm glad you guys are having a great time recording your podcast. And it is called Childhood again, right?
Yeah, it's called Childhood. And, anybody can look it up if they're interested, or we can maybe put it in the show notes.
Awesome.
In addition to just encouraging parents to get out and play with their kids and spend that quality time, I believe strongly in the power of stories. Obviously the company I work for is very grounded in stories. I think stories are very illustrative, showing kids how heroes, rise to the challenge and overcome difficult things to, achieve a goal or find a treasure or whatever that may be. Advice for parenting is to look for ways to install a love of storytelling and to try to encourage their kids to take in as many stories as they can, but also to think of how things apply to themselves and how to turn that script of listening to a story to writing a story, to becoming your own author. And that's kind of the pivot that I find interesting, because we all have a story to tell and we all have our own life to live. And the more we can equip our kids with references and heroes, that's what I encourage parents to do for their children.
Awesome. Because the truth of the matter is, who don't like stories?
Right.
Who don't like stories? Absolutely. I mean, we all like stories. So that is so awesome. We all love great stories. So I think this is awesome. Drew, thank you so much for sharing with the TMC community on today. If someone wanted to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
Anybody that wants to reach out to me personally could probably find me on LinkedIn. My name is Drew Vernon. And if you're interested in Tonies, reaching out to Tonies, our email address is hello@tonies.com. It's TONIES.com, or you could just go to our website. You can also follow us on Instagram at tonies.us.
Drew, you have something special for us. So for any listener, so there's a listener right now, listen up.
So go down in the show notes, leave a comment for today's episode. What stood out to you the most? For everyone that leaves a comment, your name will go into a drawing and we'll do a random picker to choose a winner. Drew is going to give one TMC listener a Tonies box. So we are going to everyone who leaves a comment, you leave a comment, your name will go into a drawing, and we would use a random selector, and then we will come back and we will connect with the winner, and you will receive a Tonies box. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you, Drew.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I'd love to make that available.
Thank you. On behalf of the TMC community, we want to thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us all.
It's great. Thank you so much for having me. It's really been good getting to know both of you, and I enjoy the work that you're doing.
So we hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, go ahead and subscribe. Click the like button and turn on your notifications so you will be notified each week when we upload a video. And if you're listening on iTunes, rate the podcast and leave a review. That helps us get the word out. And I want to invite you to head on over to our leadership podcast, Lead to Greatness, where my husband is interviewing entrepreneurs and great leaders from all around the world every week.
So we want to thank you for joining us today on TMC. Looking forward to hanging out with you again on next week as we continue to help you take your relationship from surviving to thriving. Bye. See you next week.